You are listening to That Hoarder Overcome Compulsive Hoarding. Learn about hoarding disorder from me, somebody who has it. I promote a better understanding of hoarding disorder, a stigmatised mental health condition that is mocked rather than treated with compassion. I want to change that, and by talking openly and honestly about hoarding, I hope to start conversations that help. Find out how to support the podcast at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support. Finally, I am not a doctor. I'm just a hoarder doing her best. So do seek professional support if and when you need it. Hey, how are you? I am okay. Today I have for you a pointless thing I found this week, and then I am talking about how we don't need to love dehoarding, we just need to do it. And then I have a shout out to another podcast that has a great top tip for you. So let's get going with...
It's time for the pointless thing I found this week.
So the pointless thing I found this week was the box for a keyboard, a computer keyboard. I clearly bought this keyboard at one of the times I was trying to improve my posture. This happens periodically. And so I had a better setup on my desk for work, and that involved having a separate keyboard. I do not use a separate keyboard now. I haven't for a long time. But up until about 3 days ago, I still had the box for the keyboard I haven't used for at least 8 years. Just a regular old cardboard box, nothing impressive, not a good box, not anything, just basic cardboard box. It is now, you will be glad to hear, in the bin. So, I've been thinking about something lately, about how sometimes we get the urge to dehoard and we want to do it and we want to make progress and we feel enthusiastic and we feel inspired and we do it, and that can feel great. But that we also need to keep going and keep plugging away at it even when we don't feel the urge, when we don't love it. Because sometimes I get rid of something and I feel empowered. I feel like I'm making good progress. I feel proud of myself. Sometimes I find an onion under the kitchen table that is evolving into some kind of otherworldly alien monster, and I have to pick it up and get rid of it, and it feels absolutely gross and disgusting. And we have to keep dehoarding through both of those. Through the, this is cool, I'm empowered, I've got this, and through the, what on earth is that bits. But a lot of dehoarding as well is neither of those. It's not thrilling and empowering, and it's not absolutely gross and disheartening. It's just, a lot of it is just blah. And we also have to keep dehoarding through the boring blahness. We have to keep dehoarding when we feel about it. A lot of dehoarding is mundane. A lot of dehoarding is challenging. Some of dehoarding is great. And whichever of those we're in, we have to keep doing it. And there can be a sense that we're doing it wrong somehow if we're dehoarding and we're not loving it. We can feel we're doing it wrong if we're dehoarding and we're actively resenting it. But just like we can be brave even if doing the brave thing we felt scared when we did it, that doesn't make you less brave. Similarly, we can make good progress in our homes even if we're not celebrating every step of the way. Even if Instagram is all about thrilled people being thrilled at every decluttering task they undertake, you're not doing it wrong if you're not thrilled when you're sorting out your 12th bag of bras, the measure of success is the state of our home, which is hopefully ever slowly improving. And the measure of success is hopefully getting to a place where we're really happy with our home and can meet our own goals, whether that's having friends round, getting things repaired, redecorating, whatever that is. It's that progress that is important rather than loving it all. Enjoying bits of dehoarding is brilliant, and we should relish in those to help us power forward. But we're not lesser dehoarders if sometimes we do it resentfully or sometimes it's really boring. When you think about it, there's loads of things we have to do that we don't love and that we just get on with. We might not love sitting in a traffic jam. We might not love waiting for a bus in the rain or going to the supermarket, but we do it. We might eat certain foods because we know they're good for us rather than because we especially like them. We survive doing things we don't love. And it can be the same with dehoarding, because the process of dehoarding is sometimes really fun and rewarding. But if you're dehoarding and it doesn't feel fun or rewarding, you're not doing it wrong. The results are still worth it and you're still making progress. Staying committed to dehoarding, even when it's boring or it's uncomfortable or it's gross, is so important. And I want you to know, if you're listening and you've been feeling like you're dealing with stuff that isn't especially like linked with traumatic memories or anything especially difficult, but you're struggling with the process because you feel like you should be making progress at lightning speed and be joyous at it. It's not just you. The progress bit is what shows whether you're doing it right or not. So let's look first about the real positive bits of dehoarding. Sometimes you just wake up and you go, right, I'm going to do this today. I'm going to sort out the kitchen. And you get up and you make a good dent in what needs to be done in the kitchen. And that's brilliant. It's good because you can make a lot of progress. It's good because you're not hating it. It's good because that can fuel you to do more. And you can feel like a real sense of accomplishment and empowerment. Like, I've got this. This is my home and I'm in charge. And that's great. And you might feel better about yourself. You might feel less down on yourself. And all of those are good feelings and recommended. Harness that when you can. But while those bits are great, they are not the full picture. They're not the full picture. Sometimes it's a gross, I'm pretty sure it was once an onion, but now I'm afraid it's going to colonize my neighborhood discoveries. There are also the bits of dehoarding where it's not so much that you're dealing with gross onion mutants. It's that you're dealing with stuff that's just hard. Maybe it's physically hard. Maybe it involves moving a lot of big things and you've not got the energy and you hate it. Or maybe it's emotionally hard because it's dealing with the stuff that was left to you when somebody died who you love. Or maybe it's stuff that's associated with a part of your life you don't like thinking about. And all of those can be incredibly difficult to deal with, whether it's like disgust at an onion mutant, whether it's discomfort, pain even, at having to do lots of physical tasks, whether it's frustration because this is hard, or whether it's emotionally very difficult stuff that you're dealing with. Those bits happen. Those bits come and go. They're not the full picture. Not everything you deal with in your home will be as difficult as today might have been, but they are part of the picture. And when that happens, reminding yourself why you're doing it in the first place can be really valuable. Reminding yourself of what you want at the end of this. Do you want your whole family to come to your house on Christmas Day? Do you want to host the neighbourhood Eid party? Do you just want to sit at home with a book and look around at beautiful surroundings? Remembering why you're doing it can help with the pain of the difficult days. And having compassion for yourself is invaluable. Self-care is great. Can you have a hot bath? Can you give yourself an hour to just watch something on TV that you'd be embarrassed to admit to but secretly love? Can you go for a walk and forget about it all for an hour? But in my experience, that only works when it's paired up with compassion for myself as well. Because if I'm lying in a hot bath, but still berating myself for something, still angry at myself, still yelling at myself, it's not a relaxing experience. Whereas if I can start to have some compassion for, oh, that was a really hard day. Or I know you're annoyed at yourself that that your home has got this far, but there are reasons for that and you're doing your best. You're not a terrible person. That can be a really good time to remind yourself that you're not a terrible person. If you've been wondering how you can support the podcast, there are more ways than just by donating. It really, really helps if you leave a review, share the podcast with your friends or on social media, link to the podcast from your website, or just follow me on social media and send me the occasional hi. Find out more at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support. But as well as the bits of dehoarding that are inspired and the bits of hoarding that are incredibly difficult, there's a lot in my experience of blah dehoarding, mundanity, boring dehoarding, just like sorting out my 100th something and thinking, what am I doing? This is tedious. And I'm not going to say that's wrong. It's not wrong. It's common. And if you're feeling some of that, you're not dehoarding wrong. You're just doing a long-term task that ebbs and flows and varies from day to day. And some days you're not motivated and you're bored. And there is a bit of a yay about that. And that is that you're doing it anyway. That's already progress. Because I can only speak for myself, but past me would have stopped at the mundane and the boring because it was mundane and boring. Whereas present me is a lot better at going, God, this is boring, and doing it anyway. Because persevering, that consistent effort, the tortoise and the hare story, the slow progress that is steady and reliable and consistent makes a lot of the difference in the big picture. And that routine nature of dehoarding is going to happen. I think about even things I enjoy, like quite often I enjoy cooking, but there are definitely days when I resent cooking, but I live on my own. So if I'm going to have a cooked meal, it has to be me who cooks it. And when that happens, when I've had a long day at work and then I have to cook a meal and it's boring and I'm slicing an aubergine and a courgette and some baby corn and I'm putting them in a stir fry and it doesn't feel like I'm creating something tasty. It feels like an absolute chore. That doesn't make it not worth doing. It doesn't make it a bad meal at the end of it. It doesn't make that the days I feel excited about cooking and I enjoy the creativity and the nice meal at the end of it. It doesn't make that less true. just means sometimes things are routine. Sometimes things feel monotonous. And sometimes that can be harder to deal with, in my experience, than the very hard days. Because at least then you kind of know what you're dealing with. The emotional highs and lows, you can at least have strategies and techniques for getting through those. But there are strategies and techniques for monotony and boringness as well. They won't make it exciting, but those are the days I put good music on. Those are the days that I save my favourite podcasts for. Those are the days that I plan a reward for the end of them. Those are the days that I make sure I get some quick wins in there, something that I will feel like I've achieved. And again, that focusing on, what do I want out of this? This is boring, but imagine at the end, that could feel incredible. And I remind myself that the boring bits are boring because they are starting to feel routine. And routine, despite what 10 years ago me would have said, is not the enemy. Instead, routine means I'm practicing. I'm getting there. It's familiar. And the fact that I'm practicing and it's familiar and I'm getting there means things are moving forward. And that's a good feeling, even when the blah boringness feels ever present. We don't need to love it. We don't need to love the process to do it. We can do things we don't love every minute of. We can even do things we hate. But even when dehoarding is hard, it's not constant hate. There are bits of it that we will hate. I hated picking that onion monster up. But most of it is not like that. There are bits I hate, there are bits I love, and there's a lot of steady work, some of which gets tedious. But if the work's getting done, that's what we're looking for. That's what we need. And just because we're not the kind of people to go and do a daily Instagram live about how much we have loved dehoarding that day, doesn't mean anything really, other than we're doing this thing because we want to or we have to, and we're committing to it. And that might be on different levels. You might be committing to trying it out. You might be committing to see it right through till the end. You might be committing to, I don't know about the rest of my life, but today I'll do this. But the fact of doing it through difficult times shows a commitment that we might not be aware we've got. And when we're doing it without loving it, we can still set up rewards, not purchases, might I add. We could set up rewards like I can have a cupcake at the end of the day, or when I've got X number of bags out, I will treat myself to a meal out. When I've finished this bit that I've been putting off all week, I'm going to ring my best friend. We can also benefit from using mindfulness type strategies. Try and focus on the now and focus on exactly what we're doing right now, not the bigger picture of all of our feelings about what we're doing. Just really zero in on the now. How does the paper feel in my hands? How does it feel when I tear it? And checking in with people who love you and support you and know you can be a really good way to help you get through as well. Because the highs and the lows are all part of the journey, that they're all part of the process we're going through. And if we remember that success, whatever success means, is measured by how hard we try. It's measured by what our homes are like to live in. It's measured by whether we can feel a glint of pride in ourselves. and it's measured by the results over time. It's not measured by us loving doing it all. If we can remember that, it can help to put in perspective that sure, the bits of dehoarding that you enjoy, if you give 3 bags to your favourite charity shop, that might feel brilliant. I've talked before about when I leave a charity shop, having just given a donation, I'm full of, I've just helped to cure cancer, and I've helped somebody who is broke to be able to buy some jeans. That I feel so good. That's a really good feeling for me. But it's not all like that. And it doesn't have to all be like that. And if we go in expecting every day or every hour to feel amazing, we're going to feel like we're dehoarding wrongly. But if you're dehoarding, and that's great. That's enough. And no matter what influencers say about anything, progress is progress, whether it's tiny or giant leaps. But if you're doing the dehoarding and feeling like you should be enthralled and you're not, that's fine. It's normal. It's common. Doesn't mean you're doing it wrong, because you're doing it and that's what counts. We have to believe that we are capable of creating a space we feel at home in, creating a space we enjoy being in, creating a space that helps us live the lives we want to live. And not all of that will be thrilling. The journey there is ups and downs and lots of blah. But we have to believe we're capable of that. So what I'm going to do, and what I want you to do, is take at least 1 step in the right direction. Maybe 2, maybe 3. But whether you feel like you love it or not, do it anyway, because we don't need to love it. We just have to do it. So shout out this week to the Frugal Friends podcast, which I will link to in the show notes at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk. They are talking about the impact of the environment we're in on our desire for impulse purchases. Have a listen to this.
So our environment has so much to do with our impulse purchases. This can be environment, literally the space and location that we are in that exact moment. It could also be environment of what's happening in the world around me, what's going on with the economy and just the political landscape, you name it, that might be influencing some of my impulse purchases. And just the physical environment. So let's say you're out shopping, the appealing displays and the tempting offers like Joanna Gaines. What are you going to say?
Target.
Yes. The Joanna Gaines section of Target. I know we've talked about this before. A really good solution in those situations is take something out of the Joanna Gaines display section and walk it on over to the trash can section and see if that item still looks good in the trash can section of Target, because that's probably going to be more accurate to how the thing looks in your own home.
And we talked about this on another episode, posted that clip onto Instagram, and it is one of our best performing reels. People love the idea of the trash test.
Not saying that your house is trash or my house is trash, but just that an item taken out of the aesthetically pleasing environment gives the impression of what the actual item looks like apart from its surroundings. And I have been disappointed myself. I'm like, why doesn't this thing look like it did there in my home now? And it's because it's not set up the same. Sometimes these items only look good in the milieu of the other things. So recognizing when your environment is at play, when you're kind of basking in the essence of the aesthetic of the place, and you just kind of want to be a part of that aesthetic by purchasing, to be able to pause and say, I can enjoy this aesthetic without pulling out my wallet to be able to lean into this right now.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. Something that looks amazing in the shop or on the website might look amazing because of the way it's staged, the way it's styled, and it just will not look amazing. It's like clothes that look amazing on a model are not going to look amazing on your average shaped person. So that's something to be aware of if we're very tempted by an impulse buy. Okay, thank you for listening, and I will speak to you next time. Thank you for listening to That Hoarder Overcome Compulsive Hoarding podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you on board. You can find all the links I've mentioned and a transcript of the episode online at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk. To find out more about how you can support this podcast and the overall project, go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support and do subscribe to the podcast so you make sure you don't miss any future episodes. There may be links in this podcast that earn me money. This doesn't come at any extra cost to you if you make a purchase through those links, and it helps to support the podcast.